Welcome to Personal Injury Marketing Minute.
Welcome to the Personal Injury Marketing Minute, where we quickly cover the hot topics in the legal marketing world. I'm your host, Lindsay Busfield, Vice President and Partner at Optimize My Firm. Today, I'm joined by Brooke Lively, CEO and founder of Scaling Law, a team of CFOs and profitability strategists who help law firm owners understand their numbers, increase profits, and build more sustainable businesses. In today's Spotlight on PIMM episode, we're talking with Brooke about how law firm owners can scale their firms in a way that builds long-term value so that law firm owners can eventually maybe step back or eventually exit from their law firms. Thank you so much for joining us, Brooke. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for the introduction. You actually were talking about a different one of my companies there. You were talking about my fractional CFO company.
Oh, well, you are a woman of many companies. So tell us about Scaling Law then.
Scaling Law is a company that is built around helping law firms scale and grow using EOS.
What is EOS?
All right, EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It was designed by Gino Wickman about 20 years ago. He wrote about it in his book called Traction. It sold over 37 million copies, and it is a great framework on which to run a company. And in my CFO company, CathCap, we noticed that some of the law firms would start working with us and they did really, really well. Like, think hockey stick results, high and to the right, like everything just happened. And then there were these other companies that made really good progress. Okay, we were happy with that. And then there was this third bucket, like think of it as bucket C, like it's A, B, and C. And bucket C, you couldn't even tell they were working with us. And we're like, okay, these people are paying us a lot of money and they're not seeing results. What are we doing wrong? We're a bunch of data-driven ladies, so we dug in. We're CFOs. And here is what we found. We were using the same analytical models. We were giving them the same type of advice. We were using the same strategies when appropriate. The difference was execution. The firms in Group A, like we said, do this, and they did it, like they executed. The firms in Group C couldn't seem to execute. And we were like, what's going on? Like, why are they having such a hard time? And so we started digging down more. And what we found were all the firms that were in Group A were running on EOS. And we finally figured out that that was part of what was allowing them to execute so quickly, so efficiently, and so well. And that was what was allowing them to drive those great results.
So talk to me more about what are the principles behind EOS?
So EOS is really about strengthening 6 key components. And they are the vision, like, where do you want to go? Where do you want to take this firm? What do you want to do? People, and that's getting the right people on the bus, sitting in the right seats. Right people, right seats. It's a very Jim Collins thing, right? Data. Of course, I love this one being a CFO. You know, what are those 5 to 15 numbers that you need to look at on a weekly basis that will give you the pulse of your firm and tell you where your firm is going, not where it's been. And then also making sure that everybody in your firm has at least one measurable, one number that they're responsible for driving every single week. The next one is issues. So we all have problems in our companies. If we don't learn how to solve those at the root, we're never going to get any better. And so often firms like get in there and they kind of solve the symptoms. And when you do that, that same problem comes back a few weeks later with a different name on it, and you're solving it all over again. So then, what's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
You're living that, and you're never going to get what you want if you're not actually solving the core problem. The next one is process. And as soon as I start talking about process and getting your processes documented, I get all kinds of eye rolls. And I get, there's so many people out there that are like, you have to document everything. And it has to be really detailed. And it has to say, there has to be a picture with an arrow that says hit enter and then click here. And then, oh my God, no. Here's what we want to do. We want to document the 20% of the processes that get 80% of your work done. That's it, 20%. Because 20-80 rule, 20% of the stuff you do gets 80% of your work done. 20%, 80% of the work on your cases is the same. The 20% is what's different case to case to case. We don't know what that is, but we do know that in every divorce, well, let's not talk about divorce. In every personal injury case, we're going to have to get the accident report. We're going to have to get all the medical records. We're going to have to create a demand package. We're going to have to negotiate with the insurance company. Doesn't matter what the facts are. We're going to have to go through those steps. And then the other thing is we only want to document the 20% of the steps that get 80% of the process done. And people's minds are blown by this because they're expecting, like I said, the arrow pointing here and the click enter and the go. But when you do that, you get this giant binder
that nobody's going to read anyway.
Nobody reads. It sits on a desk. It totally collects dust. And God forbid you change your software.
Oh.
Yeah. So we take 20-80 approach. And when you do that, process actually gives you a lot of freedom because you have confidence, that everything's going to get done the right way the first time. And you don't have to yell at people anymore. Everybody's happier because no one's getting yelled at. And it's getting done the right way. So you have confidence in your people. Because how often have you heard an attorney say, I can't give it to them because they screw it up every time?
It's way too often.
And how frustrating is that as an attorney to not be able to delegate?
Well, especially if you're an attorney who wants to scale and grow, which all of the attorneys who are listening to us are, because they want to be able to get more cases, bring on a bigger caseload, hire more people, get them trained the right way, and then hopefully be able to be a little more hands-off. And you can only do that if you have the right SOPs in place and the right training procedure in place.
And frankly, there are better things for you to do than check demand packages before they go out to make sure they're right.
Yes.
I promise that is a waste of your time. All right. So then the last thing that EOS does is focus on traction. And this is really where we kind of take the vision and bring it down to the ground and execute on it. Because as Gino says, vision without traction is just a hallucination. So traction is all about getting that accountability and making sure that things are getting done. It's creating rocks. What are our 90-day goals? It's about creating a meeting pulse where you're checking on people on a regular basis to make sure that their measurables are on track, that their rocks are getting done. It's creating that environment of accountability. And when you strengthen these 6 key components, the whole firm improves. The whole firm gets stronger. And if you could get that to just, 80% strong, not 100, no one's ever going to get to 100. That's ridiculous. No one's perfect. And there's no reason to try to get yourself to perfect because you can end up in an insane asylum trying to do it. if you can just get to like 80% of the time, oh my God, you'll be killing it.
Yes. Absolutely. And there's always room for improvement. And, my mom always told me progress, not perfection. And as long as you can identify what some of your shortcomings are, where your opportunities for growth are, then you can take your entire firm and raise it up to the next level. And as we mentioned before, putting it into that position to scale. And so as you're working with attorneys, at what point in this process are you coming in and helping them execute either that EOS system or the scaling opportunities?
So that's interesting. So I told you about the different firms and what was making them successful with us, in that it was EOS. So EOS became CathCap's number one outgoing referral. We're like, go find an EOS implementer. And our clients kept coming back and saying, we cannot find an implementer who's willing to work with law firms. And we're like, what the hell's wrong with these people? We love law firms.
Right.
I mean, hello, they're awesome.
They are, and they have all the incentive to put this into place to scale and grow, and they've got the budget there, and absolutely, why not law firms?
And the other thing they said is, I found someone who will work with a law firm, but they don't understand my industry. So I have implemented EOS in CathCap in my own company. And when you implement EOS, one of the things it does is it takes the visionary, the head of the company, and it gets you out of the day-to-day work. So as I worked myself out of a place of importance, kind of worked myself out of a job. And my COO, who is now running the company, is like, what are you going to do? Because, I mean, I really only spend an hour or two a week on that company.
It's a fabulous position to be in.
I know. I can go on vacation. And I mean, let me tell you, I don't get emails. So she's like, I think you need to go be an EOS implementer. I think you need to be the one that helps law firms do this. And so as a result, I am the only EOS implementer that works exclusively with law firms. And I now train other EOS implementers to work with law firms because you guys are a little different. I mean, okay, yeah, you're all snowflakes. There are things that, there are things that are different about the legal industry. And so, we usually come in, well, let me back up. There are 3 ways that you can implement EOS in your firm. You can go by the book Traction and read it. You may want to Get a Grip, which is the parable. It's the story of implementing Traction. And you can self-implement. You can go out and buy my book, Scaling Law, which is published by EOS. And it's about what it's like to implement EOS in a law firm. And as you start to self-implement, you can join the Scaling Law community, which is a group of other law firms that are solving the same problems you're solving using the same tools. They're using the same EOS tools. And this is the first affinity group that EOS has ever blessed and licensed. So I'm super excited about that.
Congratulations. That's a big deal.
I know. Super excited. Or you can have an implementer come in and help you. And a lot of people start on their own and self-implement, whether it's with the help of Scaling Law or not. What we have found is once you have a leadership team, once it's not just you running everything, once you have someone that can kind of help you run marketing, once you have someone that can help you run all the back office thing, once there are 2 or 3 of you that can really run the firm, that's a great time to bring in an implementer. I'm going to say, usually your revenue is, 1 million, preferably maybe a little closer to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my clients are at 5 to 7, and then up to about 50.
Right. Because it's important to have the bandwidth to be able to truly implement that. If you're going to be investing in getting the EOS system set up in your firm and really be running along, running your firm according to the best practices of this EOS to grow and scale and get beyond the 1 to 2 million as you grow your firm, having the right people in place to implement and create the SOPs that you need to drive your firm forward is hugely important.
Well, and one of the things with EOS is that you pick rocks every quarter. What are those 3 to 7 priorities that need to, those projects that need to be completed? And if you're the only one doing them, you don't have any bandwidth. And it's very hard to complete those things. Now, that is not to say that you shouldn't self-implement. I started self-implementing at CathCap when we were a team of 4.
Wow.
And it made all the difference. All of a sudden, shit got done.
Yes.
Which was awesome, and I loved it.
Which can be a really great thing about having a small team. There's a lot less red tape that you have to cut through. You can say, this is the process that I want to use for the 4 of us to actually get this done and get it moving forward. And
it was awesome. And then we got to a place where it just wasn't being as effective anymore. And that was when I sent an email to Gino. He's written a quote for the front of a couple of my books. And I sent him this email, and if he had printed it out, it would have been like 17 pages long.
Wow.
And he wrote back, he's like, Brooke, it would take me all day just to figure out what's in this one email. I'm like, game on, Gino, how much? Nice try. You need an implementer. And that's, he had me answer a list of questions, and he said, this is the guy you need. And that was awesome. I had hit that ceiling. I had done as much as I could on my own. And it's when you feel like you're not making progress on your own that you need to bring in that implementer. And then, there's some teams that, they're already at 1 or 2 million. They've got the people, and they're like, I don't want to go through the BS of trying to do this myself.
Right.
I'm ready to commit wholeheartedly to this and bring in an implementer now.
Right. Because once you have the assets in place, the human assets, the financial assets, and the right resources in place, and you want to do this and commit to it, you want to make sure you're doing it right. So having that support and that framework, as well as the accountability that's external to you, can really drive this to the next level.
It really does. And at the end of the day, it goes back to what we found at CathCap. It goes back to that execution. And the great thing with EOS is it really helps you figure out what is important and what you need to be focusing on. So there are a few phrases that I say all the time with EOS. If everything's important, nothing is important, right? So we can't have 42 projects going on because we will finish 0 of them.
Yes.
And if you say yes to this, what are you saying no to? Saying no is so incredibly hard for us, especially as entrepreneurs. Because we're like, ooh, shiny object. Let's go. Let's do that. So I was at a conference this week, right? And I know that every attorney in that room left with a list of things they wanted to go back to the office and implement.
Yes.
And I had some clients in that room. And I'm like, guys,
That's not for you. Not right now.
Put it on the list and we will talk about it at our next quarterly. But we are not starting any projects now because you have committed to these other things. And that discipline really pays off.
Yes. Well, and you're right. As entrepreneurs, we are attracted to the shiny thing. We want to get the thing that's going to get us to the next level. And it's one of the things that I love about PILMA is that you have all these new options and new ideas that are coming at you. And everybody's saying, this is the thing. This is the thing of 2026. And especially with AI right now, you have so many new gizmos and gadgets and things for your marketing and operations and scaling and data and all of this new fun stuff, which granted is fun and useful, and if implemented right, can help streamline and grow, but not all at once. So having somebody to be able to process this with and see if it aligns with your goals and how you want to scale, not just the fact that you want to scale. And especially having someone like you who has the data and is not afraid to look at the numbers and how these things align and this package all comes together. So I love that you are able to bring all that information together.
Yeah. And what needs to happen first?
Yes.
I was on the phone with another implementer this morning, and I'm working on a project for scaling law. And I called him because I wanted to partner with him on it. And God bless him. He was amazing. He's like, no. That is not my rock. This is what I have to do first. And this is what I am doing this quarter. And I'm like, but, and he's like, no, I have to do this first. And I'm like, oh, okay.
It's like, that is a rock for a different day.
Timeline.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited to explore all of this with you in PILMA coming up and learning more about scaling law and learning about EOS and extrapolating some of that for our own company as we grow, because this is great for entrepreneurs across the board. So the last question I'm going to pick your brain about as we close out today's show is, what are you looking forward to most about PILMA?
You know, I love going to PILMA because, let's face it, I run a remote company. We don't get to go see our clients very often. And I love going to PILMA because there are great people there. A lot of our clients are there. And I get to connect one-on-one and see people in person. And I just love doing that. And not only is there great information coming from the stage, but there's great information being shared in the hallway and at dinner and at lunch and at breakfast. And it's that exchange of ideas that I just think is so amazing.
It is. I love the community and being able to come together, both, again, listening to speakers who are up on stage, excited to be a part of that community this year, talking to attorneys, talking to other service providers, because even though this is a really big network across the legal industry and the legal service industry, it can feel huge and overwhelming. We're actually a pretty small community here, and I love getting together and meeting people like you and getting to exchange information and see what people are doing in 2026 going into 2027. And that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Personal Injury Marketing Minute. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brooke, and thank you to our listeners. Please stay tuned for upcoming episodes for the Spotlight on PILMA series. We're going to have some additional great presenters with some huge ideas that are going to shape how your law firm runs itself and markets and move forward for 26 and 27. So be sure to like, comment, share, do all the things that you're supposed to do with the podcast so you don't miss any of our information. And Brooke, thank you again for coming on the show. It has been an absolute delight having you today.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.